The patient file. The hospital's fluorescent lights buzzed faintly, casting a sterile glow over the cracked linoleum floors. I leaned back in the creaky chair of the security office, my eyes heavy from the night shift's monotony. The bank of grainy surveillance monitors flickered, each screen showing empty hallways, rusted gurneys, and peeling paint. St. Agnes Memorial had been abandoned for decades, left to rot after the funding dried up in the 90s. My job was simple: watch the cameras, walk the rounds, keep vandals and thrill-seekers out. Easy money for a 27-year-old like me, born in '98, just trying to pay the bills. At 2:17 a.m., a blur darted across camera 3, third floor, pediatric wing. I jolted upright, spilling my coffee. A child no older than 8 sprinted down the hall, their hospital gown flapping. Bare feet slapped the floor, the sound faint but unmistakable through the audio feed. I rubbed my eyes. Kids broken sometimes, daring each other to brave the haunted hospital, but this felt wrong. The figure moved too fast, too silent, like a shadow given form. I grabbed my flashlight and radio, heart thumping, and headed for the stairwell. The air grew colder as I climbed, the hospital's decay more oppressive up here, moldy wallpaper curling like dead skin, the faint smell of antiseptic lingering despite the years. The pediatric wing was a maze of narrow corridors, doors hanging ajar to reveal rusted beds and scattered toys. No sign of the kid. I called out, "Hey, kid, you're not supposed to be here." My voice echoed, unanswered. Back at the security office, I rewound the footage. There they were again, small, pale, running endlessly down the hall. But on the second loop, I froze. The child stopped, turned, and looked at the camera. Their face was blurred, like a smudged photograph, but their eyes, dark, hollow, seemed to bore into me. The screen fritzed and the footage cut out. That's when I saw it on the desk, a manila folder, yellowed and brittle, lab. Patient file. John Doe, admitted 1993. My stomach churned. I hadn't left anything there. Hands shaking, I open it. The first page listed standard medical details, height, weight, blood type, but the name at the top stopped me cold. My name. Below it, a Polaroid was clipped to the file. It was me, unmistakably, same jawline, same eyes, staring blankly, wearing a hospital gown. The date stamped on the photo read March 14th, 1993. I was born in 1998, 5 years after this file was made. My radio crackled and a child's voice whispered, "You never left." The monitors flickered again, showing the same hallway. The child stood there, motionless, holding another file. This one had today's date, and my photo was already inside. The air in the security office felt heavier, like the hospital itself was holding its breath. My hands trembled as I clutched the patient file, its edges crumbling under my fingers. The Polaroid of me, impossibly dated 1993, stared back, my own face a stranger's in that faded hospital gown. The child's whispered voice lingered in my mind. "You never left." The radio sat silent now, but the words clung to me like damp rot. I glanced at the monitors. The child was gone, the hallway empty again, but the new file they'd held in the footage, dated today, July 15th, 2025, gnawed at me. I scanned the room, half expecting to find it materializing on the desk. Nothing. Just the hum of the monitors and the distant groan of the hospital's ancient pipes. I needed answers. The file in my hands was a start. Flipping past the photo, I found handwritten notes in a doctor's scrawl. Patient exhibits dissociative behavior. Claims no memory of admission. Refuses to acknowledge identity. Recommend extended observation. Room 312. Room 312 was in the pediatric wing, just down the hall from where I'd seen the child on the cameras. I grabbed my flashlight and headed back to the third floor, the file tucked under my arm. The stairwell smelled of rust and something sweeter, like old med. Inside, the room was a time capsule of decay. A small bed with a sagging mattress sat in the corner, its sheets stained and torn. A child's drawing, a crude sketch of a figure in a gown, standing in a hallway, was pinned to the wall, The crayon lines faded but vivid enough to unsettle me. The figure's face was scribbled out, just like the child's on the camera. My flashlight swept the room, landing on a metal cabinet in the corner. It was locked, but the hinges were loose. I pried it open with a penknife, the screech of metal echoing like a scream. Inside was a stack of files, each labeled with names and dates from the early 90s. I rifled through them, my heart pounding. Every file had a photo, kids, all pale and hollow-eyed, all in hospital gowns. And then I found it, another file with my name, dated 1993, but this one had more pages. A note inside read, "Subject transferred to experimental ward, sublevel B. Procedure incomplete. Patient unresponsive." Sublevel B wasn't on any of the hospital's blueprints I'd seen during training. My gut twisted. I was born in '98. This couldn't be me. Could it? The radio crackled again. "You're still here," the child's voice hissed, closer now, as if they were in the room. I spun around, flashlight cutting through the dark. Nothing. But the drawing on the wall had changed. The scribbled-out face now had eyes, dark, hollow, like the child's on the monitor. And the figure was holding a file. I bolted from the room, the corridor stretching impossibly long as I ran. The lights flickered, plunging the hall into brief darkness with each pulse. Footsteps pattered behind me, small and quick, but every time I turned, no one was there. My flashlight caught glimpses of movement, shadows darting into doorways, a flash of a gown. At the stairwell, I hesitated. Sublevel B. If it existed, it was below the basement, a place I'd never been told to check. The basement was a labyrinth of leaking pipes and exposed wires, the air thick with mildew. The basement was a labyrinth of leaking pipes and exposed wires, the air thick with mildew. At the far end, hidden behind a pile of collapsed shelves, I found a rusted door marked Sublevel B. Authorized personnel only. The lock was broken, the door slightly ajar. Beyond it, a concrete stairwell descended into darkness, the air growing colder and heavier with each step. My flashlight flickered, threatening to die. At the bottom, a long hallway stretched out, lined with unmarked doors. The walls were scrawled with childish drawings, more figures in gowns, some with faces, some without. One drawing showed a man in a security uniform, holding a flashlight. Me. My breath caught as I reached the end of the hall, where a single door stood, labeled Observation. Inside was a surgical room, pristine compared to the rest of the hospital. A steel table sat in the center, surrounded by ancient medical equipment, syringes, monitors, things I didn't recognize. On the table was a fresh patient file, dated today. My name was on it. My photo, taken from the security office's ID scanner, was clipped inside. The notes read, "Subject returned. Procedure to resume." A soft giggle echoed behind me. I turned, and there was the child, standing in the doorway, their face still blurred but their eyes piercing. They held another file, identical to the one on the table. "You never left," they said, their voice echoing inside my skull. The room spun, my vision blurring. The last thing I saw was the child stepping closer, their small hand reaching for mine, and the file in their grip, its pages blank, waiting to be filled. Patient file, final part. The security office felt like a trap now, the walls too close, the air too still. The monitors glowed with their endless loop of me in the pediatric wing, the child, my younger self, clutching my shoulder, their hollow eyes fixed on the camera. The patient file, its pages now heavy with ink, pulsed in my hands like a heartbeat. The final note in my own handwriting, "Return to Sublevel B. Complete the procedure," burned into my mind. I didn't want to go back down there, but the hospital wasn't giving me a choice. The door to the office rattled, though no one was there. The lights flickered and the child's voice, my voice, whispered through the static. "It's time." I stumbled into the hallway, the file tucked under my arm. The hospital was shifting, corridors stretching and bending, doors appearing where walls had been. The drawings on the walls moved, their crayon figures twisting, reaching for me. Every step toward the basement felt like wading through molasses, the air thick with the sweet rot of old medicine and something sharper. Fear, maybe mine, maybe the hospital's. I didn't know anymore. The rusted door to sublevel B was wide open now, the stairwell beyond it a black maw. My flashlight was gone, but a faint glow pulsed from below, like a heartbeat in the dark. I descended, each step echoing with the patter of small, bare feet behind me. I didn't turn around. I knew who it was. The surgical room in sublevel B was different now. The steel table gleamed under a single overhead light, surrounded by machines that hummed with unnatural life, screens flickering with static, needles glinting in trays. The walls were covered in drawings, hundreds of them, all showing me, as a child in a gown, as a security guard, as a figure strapped to this very table. The child stood in the doorway, holding the file with my photo, dated today, July 15th, 2025. Their face was mine, unblurred, an 8-year-old version of me with eyes that held too much knowing. Why am I here? I croaked, my voice barely audible over the machine's hum. You're the anchor, they said, their voice, my voice, calm, almost gentle. St. Agnes needed you. The procedure ties you here, keeps the loop intact. What loop? I demanded, stepping back, my shoulder brushing the table. It was cold, alive, like it remembered me. Time, they said, stepping closer. This PLA place, it doesn't let go. In 1993, they tried to make you the anchor to hold the hospital outside time. You were special, but you weren't born yet. So they waited, and you came back. My head spun. The files, the photos, the impossible dates, it all clicked, a sickening puzzle. The hospital wasn't just haunted. It was a machine, a trap built to hold me, to keep some experiment alive. The children in the files, the ones with blurred faces, they were part of it, too, caught in the same endless cycle. But I was the key, the anchor they needed to make it permanent. I grabbed the file from the child's hands. They didn't resist. The pages were filled now, detailing every moment of my life, my birth in '98, my job here, this night. The final page was blank except for one word, complete. I tore it out, ripping it to pieces. The child didn't move, but the machine screamed, a high-pitched whine that shook the room. The drawings on the walls bled, crayon lines dripping like blood. No, I said, my voice steady despite the chaos. I'm not staying. The child tilted their head, their eyes, my eyes, sad but unsurprised. You can't leave, they whispered. You're already here. The room lurched, and I was on the table, straps snapping around my wrists, though no one touched them. The machine's whirred, a needle hovering above my arm. The child stood over me, holding a new file, its pages blank again. It's okay, they said. It's just forever. I thrashed, kicking the table, and something gave, a crack in the floor, a fracture in the hospital's grip. The drawings on the walls burned, curling into ash. The child screamed, their form flickering, blurring back into shadow. I tore free of the straps, the needle clattering to the floor. The room was collapsing, walls cracking, machines sparking. I ran, the hallway twisting around me, the stairs to sublevel B crumbling as I climbed. I burst into the basement, then the main floor, the hospital groaning like a dying beast. The monitors in the security office were dead, the patient file gone. The front doors, always locked, hung open, the night air cold and real. I stumbled outside, collapsing onto the cracked pavement as dawn broke, painting the sky blood red. Behind me, St. Agnes was silent. I turned, and the hospital was gone. Nothing but an empty lot, overgrown with weeds, as if it had never existed. My phone buzzed in my pocket, a single notification, a photo, dated 1993, of me in a hospital gown, standing in a hallway that no longer existed.